Hello, I'm Dale Matthews. This is Inside News, and here's Mike Jones. Mike Jones.
Hey, Dale. How's it going this evening? Another, foray into, whatever's going on in the city here. I had a bit of time here to think about this last night, and I posted something on Josephine County Politics after the fact. Obviously, I'm quoting numbers not entirely perfectly correct. But I did an interesting thing last night when taking even the smallest number, the $230 million, and entering that into an amortization calculator that I found online. First of all, I had to search around for one that I could put $230 million into, and it would actually do the calculation instead of saying, oh, you mean $230,000.
Right.
Because it's not used to that kind of thing. But, we're going to need to come up with about, $15 to $20 million more a year.
Every year?
Every year until the thing is paid off, unless they have a huge cache of money sitting on hand, or they're going to, nail everybody with these SDC charges, which system development charges, which they may be planning on doing, but either one of those things is huge impact. I really, the next thing that I need to know is how much money does the city take in every year, from the people that are paying taxes, and what percentage of that total normal income is this? And I think it's substantial.
Well, I can answer some of those questions to the best of my ability. What Mike and I are talking about, in case you didn't see last night's show, which you may want to go watch, is the Grants Pass City Council on Wednesday had a meeting where they were discussing some new water projects in addition to, I've got that confirmed now, Mike, in addition to the new water plant. And so, and these are directly tied in with the kind of growth that the Grants Pass City Council has decided is good for everybody. And so then, according to them, they're actually required after a certain point of population growth to do projects to handle stormwater drainage and that kind of stuff. And so we played part 1 of 2 last night on this show. And this is part 2 of 2, which will also include public comment. People have asked them questions. The first thing I wanted to show you, however, is we know that there's a certain amount of money that's been spent on public safety, which they say is fully funded in the city, in Grants Pass City. And how does that compare with these projects that they're talking about for water and wastewater and treating water and et cetera? So here's a chart that comes from the city. So when you look at this carefully, you'll see just above the blue on the left, it says water. On the little red one right next to it on the right, it says solid waste. That's hard to read. Then on the tall green one, it says wastewater. And then on the little purple one that's down at the bottom, it says stormwater. And then, on the lighter blue one on the right, it says streets. And so when you look at the chart on the left, sorry, this is not my chart, it's their chart. When you look at the chart, the legend on the left, it says water expenditures, $8 million. And then the green one, every year, every single year. And this is the budget summary for 2017, which was the second part of their meeting where they were approving the budget for 2017. You think they did that already? Well, they go through one more step. And then the green one in the middle is almost $8 million. Well, Mike, when you add up the $8 million to the left, together with the almost $8 million to the right, that equals just about $20 million. The amount of money that they're spending on public safety is about $20 million.
Wow.
Yeah, that's how big it is in Grants Pass in the city for water.
Okay, so I can only assume from this that they're going to have to pay probably another $2-3 a thousand in order to absorb the cost of this debt. Are they going to float it as a bond and have the bond, sitting there until it's been paid for? I mean, how's that going to work?
Well, so we know from history that when you throw a witch into a pond, if she floats as a bond, then she's a witch. And if she sinks and drowns, then she's not a witch. So
Right.
to answer Mike's question, we don't know yet, because as they said in this meeting, and the thing over my shoulder at last night's meeting said, first they come up with their wish list of their fondest desires, and then they figure out how to pay for it. But first you have to come up with a list, and then they figure out how to pay for it. And here is a clip from last night's meeting to put this in a little bit more perspective, to bring you all up to speed again.
Under cost implications, we have wastewater collection system. The overall capital improvement program is showing at $108 million, and that's on table 6.12. Approximately 53 million of those items listed are dedicated or related to growth, which could be eligible then for the SDCs. And then again, under water distribution, it's 79.1 million. Capital improvement plan, table 5.4. 53 million is related to growth, available potentially to SDCs.
Now, here's the question that came up then on Facebook following this. Brad Converse has asked, now wait a minute. He said he was sitting in the meeting and he thinks that water distribution system may mean the water plant, the new water plant. And because
He's fairly confident about that.
Right, and because one of the numbers mentioned at the beginning of the water plant discussion was $80 million, this is 79.1, so isn't that the same thing? So we did have a couple of questions that were asked of the city council and that were finally answered the next day. No, this water distribution system, this master plan, is not including, this according to the city council, is not including the water plant.
Okay, then. So add another 80 to, well, listen, I've heard numbers from like 40 to 100 million on the water plant, and so you can't really trust anything that they say. But so okay, we were at 230. Now we're up to 300, just like I was saying, and if you throw on top of that, now. When we were talking about the urban renewal program, it seemed to me that they were also talking about the water treatment plant during that little spiel there too. And so it's kind of hard to, that's why you really need a spreadsheet and have specificity as to what's what, and stop changing the names of things and recategorizing them into other programs and stuff. Let's just, keep it all straight so we understand. I mean, we're not talking about chicken feed here. We're talking about hundreds of millions of dollars. So, the bottom line is that we're at least up to 300 million on the wish list thing here, and possibly as high as 400.
Yeah, according to my source that has a direct connection with the city government, there were 3 things you just saw on that list. These are 3 big projects out of 5. And project number 4 is the new water plant. So that answers the question from Broad Converse. Certainly understandable. What I did was I went back after getting the question from Mike through Facebook. What I did was I went to the entire presentation at the beginning of this that was by Laura Glover, who's that director of that department, and I captured the whole thing and posted that separately on Facebook. There's a value to looking at Facebook for those who want to know. And it wasn't clear at all. It was not explained anywhere in there whether it was part of it or not part of it.
Well, and water distribution system. Now, depending on how you're talking, that could mean the whole thing, because distribution, that would take in from the intake, treatment, and distribution. But apparently, it only means that which comes after the water plant. Is that correct?
Well, yeah, and Mike's right. I mean, if you think of distribution as distributing the water from the river, well, yeah, it would include the water plant, because you take it in from the river and then it goes into this thing, and it's at the beginning $80 million. This is 79.1. So wouldn't you legitimately, thank you, Brad, wouldn't you come up with that conclusion? Well, apparently not. And this thing about not being very clear about things and changing the definition of things, we see this with the county commissioners all the time. That just when you think, you all remember, because you saw this show, where it was Peggy Goodwin, Margaret Goodwin, that was suggesting that perhaps what they could do is they could take some of this money that comes in, where it come in as a windfall, and place that into a fund that would have a slightly separate name to it, but it would still be available to Public Works or potentially to the sheriff at some time in the future. Not now, maybe in the future. They didn't like the idea of even putting in a separate fund where it would not then be mixed in with everything else, to use the water analogy again. You don't want to mix it. You do want to mix it in, because then you won't know what's in there that came from that source. Oh, well, we spent all of that last week on filling in a pothole.
I'm telling you, this is such a bad idea. You know what? And this is very interesting, because if you read in some of that thread in Josephine County Politics last night, and I'm apologize if I'm, hatcheting your name here. I think it was Jo Rae Perkins. She's running for office.
Yes.
I think it's a state office. Maybe it's a federal office. You see, I don't get out much anymore. Dale and I we're stuck in this little teeny fishbowl that is Josephine County. But the bottom line is that she noted that there is a city, if I just reference the post, and I will do that and tell you a little bit later. But essentially,
the first to bring you the news.
Yes. Isn't it nice that it's so complete and clear? That's essentially that they passed a rule in this town, in this city, that no more expenditures of any large nature. I'm sure there's some sort of a cap that triggers this, but no great expenditures without a vote. I think it's a fantastic idea. And you know what? See, people aren't paying attention to this. This is why you only had one person in there. People aren't paying attention to this because nothing ever happens there. This should have been led with fanfare for a couple of months getting up to this meeting to tell you, hey, here's what's coming. This is what's coming. We're going to talk about the thing that's going to hit your pocketbook big time, so you might want to pay attention. None of that. And
you saw this last night where the city council started talking about, you'll hear more about that tonight. They started talking about how, well, let's not introduce this to the public as one big package. Let's divide it up into 3 little packages, because that'll make it easier to understand. Read this as it'll make it easier to give them this thing.
Yeah.
That they follow.
Yeah, but listen, at some point, they're going to have to let the cat out of the bag. This is a big deal. When you open up your tax bill or your water bill or however they're going to stick this to you, people's eyes are going to be popping, and there's going to be like these little cartoon eyes popping out of the head, ears blowing off with steam. That's what you're going to...
They've got a solution for that too. And that they're talking about maybe what we should do is, yes, we're going to need that entire amount of money, but what if we, just ratchet up the thing, kind of like that analogy of a frog that's being boiled alive. I don't really like that analogy, but you turn up the heat a little bit at a time, you see. And so we'll just raise it up a little bit, and then the next year a little bit more, and the next year a little bit more. And, with the kind of populace that we sometimes have here in Josephine County and in Grants Pass City, they'll never notice.
Yeah, they're going to increase as the debt comes on. But listen, it isn't just that, because, you know, this is a big expenditure thing, but they're not going to be able to give up the little ratcheting up that they already do.
Yes.
Because they're going to be doing that in the background too, at the same time as they're doing this. You know,
That's
they
right.
like this big thing, but they're also like their little stuff too. And so, you know, this is just bad. And people should be paying more attention to it.
Well, they
Sadly,
came up
there.
with their strategic meeting. You were there when we were playing it back for you. They had like 200 ideas or something of things that they'd like to have. Why? I'd like to go to Disneyland. Let's send the whole council to Disney. That was not one of them. But all right, a little bit more from Laura Glover here.
And then our storm water system and that's 46.5 million. So your call to action tonight, I do want to emphasize with a lot of material, this is not a deadline that you have to face tonight. We have plenty of time to review and discuss these matters, to go through, to make sure the council, all your questions are answered. And, but again, if you're ready
Dale?
to.
Oh, hey, can you
Yes.
roll that back and pause that for a second on that screen?
Yes, sir. There we go.
You know what? I find this to be, number one, either really, really condescending, or, you know, I mean, or just plain evil. They either are exercising mind control over the city councilor. This potential motion, you know, call to action. In other words, you need to act. Alternatives: approve as presented, approve as modified by council list modifications, or deny. You know, but potential motion at the bottom: I move to approve the ordinance adopting the. I mean, this is what they want them to do.
Yes.
Listen, I advise these people, you poor saps who don't realize what's going on. You are sitting on this, the staff that is proposing this to you has no accountability whatsoever in this at all. It's all you, okay? You are the one who is going to have to eat this when it turns out to be the boondoggle that it's going to be.
Well, no, wait. They beat the rap once. You know, they suggested a city sales tax, and then when the people reacted to it, even after it didn't pass, wow, we're angry with you. You heard Dan DeYoung say, "Well, I don't understand why people are angry. Why they're sore winners, and I'm done with this." Their reaction, and we saw it, and we played it back for you. Their reaction was, "Well, you know, the people are kind of, they still got their hand out. They still want this kind of stuff. Why I just don't understand why they don't do it."
Okay, but the sales tax and this, you know, the sales tax is chump change by comparison.
Oh, that's true.
It's nothing. This is their wish list, and you know that they have padded these things, and the stuff is going to go into the general fund, and they're going to shuffle this money exactly how they want to do it, and wait till you see the extravagant spending they're going to be doing in every department, every single one of them. You can bet on it.
So,
because that's how this stuff works.
We're going to continue watching what they have to say here. And the reason I'm sighing is there anything that we can do about this? Are they absolutely invulnerable to public feedback?
Oh, I believe what should take place, because this is the only way that something like this is going to happen. And I'll go to the Facebook page and get that suggestion. I suggest that people in the city petition and get a bunch of signatures to put a law exactly like this one on the ballot that says large expenditures like this need to go to a vote of the people. I don't care if it's required by the federal government or whatever. You still need to get the permission of the people who are the boss. You can't just do, oh, well, we're required. These people up here told us we had to do it. Oh, well, oh, yeah? Well, we tell you, you don't have to do it. You know,
a piece of paper saying, look, see, I mean, she turns it this way so that you can't read it. See, it says right here, you must do this. And then when we looked it up, it didn't say that.
Yeah. Well, it may or may not say that, but listen, if we cannot afford to do this, then we should say something about it and not do it. As I said before, what are they going to do? Tell us we have to leave? What are they going to do? Come down here and force us with a gun in our face? Is that what they're going to do? I don't think so.
It's a good question. All right, here's more.
Okay, Ken, and then Roy, then Dennis.
Laura, thank you for the presentation. And this is kind of premature, but it does tie together right now. When we take, like on your page, on the cost implication page, we take 108 million, we take 79 million, and we take 46 million. I'm just using rough figures. And then we're going to come back and we're going to start setting our SDCs or our rate study for this. In my opinion, if we try to take this all as one group, we won't be able to afford, nobody will be able to afford the SDC charges to build, and our growth might stop. Is there a way that maybe when we get to the rate study, even though we have if we approve every one of these plans, that's what the goal is to do. So we're looking at that $200 and some million. If we were to project out 4 to 5 years when we do our rate study, we would have a smaller SDC increase. Wouldn't that be more feasible rather than trying to look at this as $250 million, say? I mean, that's my concern, is that we already know that we've lowered those rates. We've promoted growth, but if we raise those SDCs back up to what they were 7, 8 years ago, or maybe longer, I've lost track of time being on council, we may be in the same boat again, and we're going to need the increase of revenue to help pay for these. So I really hope that that's one of the things we can adopt when we go to that part, if that's okay.
Sounds like a pretty reasonable point, right?
Mm-hmm.
Well, that's what I thought. And then I started thinking about just a little bit more. This fellow's running for office, supposedly. He's up for re-election anyway. And this is the same fellow that voted against the sales tax because it wasn't enough money.
Yeah. What do you think he's trying to cover himself?
Well,
in case something goes wrong here.
But perhaps he's just altruistic, or perhaps he doesn't want to kill business in this area, as opposed to what this sales tax would have helped do.
Well, and this is an interesting thing, because I noticed that they had on the list there, we're spending this much, and 53 million of that is growth, and therefore eligible for SDC charges. Right. Now, eligible and actually collecting money from somebody in that way are two different things, because one, you're just saying, yeah, that's how we're going to get it. Well, you don't get it if they don't pay it to you. That's something that still takes place voluntarily. People make those decisions about those charges when they decide whether or not they're going to put their commercial enterprise in that location.
That's correct.
I would want to know, and the thing is that if you're talking about system development charges taking up a huge chunk of this money that we're talking about in the hundreds of millions of dollars, it's actually payments on a loan of hundreds of millions of dollars, which is going to end up being close to $1 billion. So that should mean something to us all. If you're paying 15 to 20 million, maybe even more than that, depending on how much you're borrowing, that's going to add up to be a huge chunk of money. And if, you're planning on taking up half of that, which seems to be about what they were figuring in system development charges, that's huge chunk for a business coming in. When they look at the list of fees that they're going to have to pay, and millions of dollars in system development charges, that's not going to fly. They're going to pass us right by. And I know that for the most part, city government doesn't care about that. They're getting their money one way or another from the people. So they don't really care what the impact of that is. They don't care if it ruins business in Grants Pass. They don't care about that. It's not a big deal to them. They don't.
Tell everybody, remind everybody what the mayor said to you on the street.
Yeah, well, that was weird. And listen, I don't expect that the mayor, is a huge businessman or whatever, or even if he is, people that have been in business for a long time that are sitting on the city council, they have to glean at some point that this operation that we're doing here is completely different than the normal type of work that I do. The normal type of work I'm doing, I come to somebody's house, I provide some service, they pay me when have completed my job, and I have to be competitive with all the other people that are in the same business. Government doesn't work that way. We say what it's going to cost, and who knows how they arrived at these figures. And then, people pay it, and we don't really know that that's what competitively is the cost of doing these services that allegedly need to be completed. So,
my point was that the mayor had said to Mike on camera, I mean, he was pointing a camera at him, so it's not like he was, mysteriously not understanding what was happening.
Yeah.
Mike asked him, well, what would happen if this sales tax was putting a lot of businesses out of business, was making it possible for them? Oh, we could try it for another year or two and see what
he suggested that, that maybe that could go on for a couple of more years. And, that's what you say when you don't have to, when there's no accountability for you. I mean, you can walk away from this situation at any time. There's no big deal, to you. A CEO of a corporation, if he makes a few boneheaded moves, they call him into the boardroom and send him packing.
That's correct.
And we should reserve the right to do that. I think we should.
Well, you can't do that if there's only one person running for mayor.
Right. That's a very good point. Listen, God, the corruption, and they don't see it as this, but I do. The corruption in the city hall, I think, is far worse than what's going on in the county. And I think a lot of it has to do with, it's not that they wouldn't be just as bad if they had the money to spend. If they had the money or the access to the money, our commissioners would be equally bad. The entire operation there. The thing is that government, be it city or county or state or federal, needs to be watched. The price of liberty, eternal vigilance. Right. You have to do that. Otherwise, they're going to siphon it away from you, and you're going to wake up one morning and your taxes are going to be much higher, or your freedom's going to be gone, or something like that. I don't want to get too, a tinfoil hatty here, but the bottom line is that this is our job. This is our job to look out after what they're doing and be skeptical of everything that they do. It's what we should be doing if we want to protect prosperity. I'm telling you. Right,
so I got up at a city council meeting, and I simply said I wasn't going like this, and I wasn't couching it in certain ways of saying things. I just said, as a matter of fact, that Dan DeYoung was running for county commissioner, and the mayor stopped me speaking. It's the last time I went to a city council meeting, and said that you're out of order. You're attacking a council member, by saying he's running for office. It just was a side statement that I made. I was described by one of the other city councilors during a protected time for doing that, for saying that he was running for county commissioner, as rude, intolerable, and out of control. Now, near the end of this, we're going to have, and this is what this quote is over my shoulder, we'll show you what it means to be media that's under control.
Yeah. Oh, by the way, it is Jo Rae Perkins, and she said, check out the ballot measure passed in Albany in 2014. No new debt without voter approval, including revenue bonds. And I think, it's due time that we look into something like that here. And at the very least, citizens of Grants Pass who are going to be paying for this stuff, ultimately it's you, okay? You should at least have some curiosity as to how this debt is going to manifest on your bills, water sewer bill, and your property taxes. You need to know that. And if you're not curious about that, I mean, how stupid are you? Really?
All right. Well, speaking of how stupid, here's a little bit more.
Valerie?
One of the things on the project initiation activities that I pulled up from one of the books was talking about the steps that were required. And one of them, after confirming the project schedule and project delivery strategy, was plan and implement a public outreach program. So I feel personally, I would really like to include the public. It's kind of like the stormwater system. I don't think most people understand that suddenly we have requirements that have never been there before as a result of our growing population, and that the stormwater plan is new that we have to develop. And that's really, that's something that has never been factored in because it hasn't had to be, but now it is. So I think there's a lot of education, and I know that there was a group that was involved, a committee that was involved back in 2013-14 in developing this and talking about it and making a recommendation as to what would happen. And I would love to have them come back or, try to at least put out there so there's some community members as well to look at those options and be a part of a committee or task force to look at it.
We've seen this with the county commissioners. We need to get people involved that are not in government. Why? Well, to get the word out. Yeah, that's one of the possibilities. The other one is to spread the blame. Oh, look, it was the citizen-driven initiative that came up with it, not us. No, it wasn't us. Why? Let's go back to those people in 2012 that suggested this and trot them out and say, here, you explain it to everybody. I mean, they're your people. You, the populace, hey, we didn't want to do this. Remember what Ken Hannum said before? Why, I was just trying to respond to what the people were asking for with a sales tax. Why, It wasn't us. It was you. It was you, the citizens, that begged for this. We're begging you not to have a voter's pamphlet. Please, please do whatever it is. We're asking you to do what you plan to do all along. And then suddenly, oh, well, what a mysterious vote. Why did people vote against this when they were all begging us to do it? So, yeah, bring them on out, trot them out there. That's nice. Okay.
I'll open it up for public comment at this time regarding this matter. So does anybody wish to speak? If they'll step up to the microphone, you have 3 minutes to talk. The little yellow light will come on at 30 seconds left. The red light, you're over. Anybody wish to speak on this matter at all? One person. Yes, ma'am. Please state your name and where you're from.
Now, I'm going to ask you, everybody in the audience, this is audience participation night. Keep track of what she's asking. Keep track of what she's asking. Okay?
My name is Arden McConnell, and I'm from Grants Pass. I live in the city. And this sounds like an extraordinarily complicated issue. It's really hard to come up with any really in-depth kinds of questions. I just wanted to mention that last night I read in the Courier that the project was going to be over $300 million, but I don't see that up there. Is there something missing? Is there another piece that goes with the $300 million?
Yeah. Because it's hit over 300.
Yeah, public comment. Yeah, we can't answer you, Arden, at this time, but we will answer you later on today.
Okay.
That's so dumb.
And they did not.
Also, will the cost of, I have to think in total issue. I can't take it piece by piece. So bear with me while I do speak as a person who may have to pay the bills. So is this going to be going on my water bill? The cost?
See, she wants to know how this manifests.
During public comment, we're here to listen and we can't interact with you, but
Again,
we can talk.
so stupid.
Just one more. Will this issue go to the vote of the people? Will it be on the ballot?
Sorry, can't tell you.
Write that one down for later on.
Okay,
also.
write it down.
That's so funny.
Let's all laugh about it.
Yes, and hopefully you got the back end of this to see whether or not they answered any of it. I assume you do because you told us to keep track of all this.
Right. Well, I did. I talked to Arden just a few minutes ago,
Oh, awesome.
and I thanked her from everybody in the community. Thank you for going to the meeting and stepping forward. We're doing our part by playing it for you. You're doing your part by talking to your neighbors about this. She did her part by standing up. You know, there's always the possibility of retaliation. We get it all the time just for asking the question.
Yeah,
Wow.
and
Out of control.
you notice that she asked all of the good questions.
Yes.
Just tell me what the bottom line is here.
Yes.
You've broken it up into, the paper says 300 million. You're telling us less than that. Just give it to us as one big chunk and then tell me where I'm going to see this. Is it going to come on my water bill? Is it going to be the taxes? Do the people have a say? These are all the good questions, and I'm sad.
They didn't discuss that. What, they have no idea what we want to know? No idea, really? They have no idea what we really need to know? She told me I was asking the questions that I was hoping everybody would want to know.
Of course.
All right, so I asked the same kind of questions in the same way. Well, he was gnawing on the furniture again. No, I wasn't. I asked the same kind of, and then people will say about me, and they may say this about her as well. We talked about that too. Well, why can't you be positive? I don't think these questions are positive or negative. I mean, you don't know the answer. You'd like to know. It's not saying what kind of stupid ideas you. That's not what she said. Okay,
Yeah.
so what were the three?
I said that, but she.
No, she did. So what
She
were
was
the
calmer
three
about
questions? Here's your test for everybody. Maybe most of you went to school in the 1900s like I did. So what were the three questions? Number one was, is this 300 million like the Courier said it was? Well, we'll answer that today, which they did not do. I asked them, did they answer you? No. What was the second question? Do you remember?
Yeah, she said, is this going to be on my water bill?
Right. And then the third question was, come on, everybody. The third
Is this, are they going to send this to a vote of the people?
right.
Yeah.
She didn't get an answer to those.
Yeah.
She did not get an answer on
To
the same.
any of them?
Well, the next day she got an answer to one of them.
Oh, which one? Please.
300 million.
Oh.
And because what she was told is there were 5 things, not 3 things. And the 5 things, when you add them up, that's 300 million. This is, again, part of, I think it's a strategy, though you can say it any way you want to as the audience. I think it's a strategy to divide it down into little parts. You can eat an automobile as long as you cut it into tiny little parts.
Right, because if you hear 200 million on one day, and then 3 months later they say something else about 40 million, you're not thinking about 200 million anymore. You're not thinking of this as arriving as a completely intact and functional elephant. You're not. That's
Okay.
so anyway. Interesting.
I've included 3 minutes from one of the city councilors. I know it's a bit long, but I wanted you to hear the way that she answered Arden's 3 questions, the way she answered Arden's 3 questions, because she did this afterwards, not an immediate response. Now, we saw on this meeting, and you probably don't know this, but Vivian Kirkpatrick Pilger got up during the later part of the meeting to ask a question about the red light cameras, and they started answering her immediately while she was standing there. But that's not going to be possible with this process, because when you think about it, they just can't answer you, which is the reason I don't go to these meetings anymore, because the mayor kept answering me by saying, well, you're asking stupid questions, and why would you do that? And I'd like to see the proof of that. And he can say anything he wants to after I sit down when they're not supposed to respond. So they're not following their own rules. They didn't either.
I got a huge problem with this process. It's like you come up. The people up there on the panel know the answers to these questions. They can tell them right now if they were courteous enough to do it, but you're all a bunch of jerks. Really. I mean, the rule is stupid. Turn your mic on, say, yeah, that's a really dumb rule. Yes, by the way, we're not going to let you have a word on this. It's not going to go to a vote of the people. Yeah, you're right. It's 300 million. It's not 230 million. I mean, answer these questions. This is the stupidest thing, and it's designed to give them a buffer so they don't have to talk to you if they don't want to. Why don't you just be courteous? But you can't be, because this is the way you think.
That's right. They do answer you when they want to. Okay,
yes.
So you could argue with this audience. You can argue with this. We just can't quite hear you. You can say, well, listen, they don't want to get into a back and forth, a bad-spirited dialogue. Well, okay. I know a couple
so we're going to opt for no dialogue.
And so here is the way they handled it, because when Arden sat down and they were done with a couple other things, then one of the city councilors started to answer Arden's questions. Here's 3 minutes. Remember the 3 questions she asked. Here's 3 minutes from Valerie, from one of the city councilors in answering, and see for yourself how well she answers these 3 questions.
Valerie?
Oh, I just wanted to kind of explain a little bit and answer your questions. Can we do that?
Sure, it's a deliberation.
Yeah, and I agree that this is very confusing and overwhelming to anybody out in the public, because these are huge numbers, and it's been kind of going on, I think, for a long time. And myself, just being on the board, I've been trying to piece together, where it started, where it's coming from. And I think a lot of it has to do in understanding the planning process. If you have to look out ahead. And they've been looking at ahead for a long time, and knowing that, things break down, things kind of come apart, and we're going to need to deal with it at some point in time.
Are you answering the question, lady? You had 3 questions. You could pick any one of the 3. Mm-hmm. She's not answering the question, but we'll give her a little bit more time. Perhaps we'll eventually get around to it. That's 1 minute out of 3 to answer the 3 questions.
I think the fact that we went to like 35,000, we kind of hit a bump in the road population-wise, where it became glaring that we were going to need to really look at our infrastructure and plan ahead and look to the past and see what we've had and where we need to go. Because I've myself been kind of hearing a lot about it in the past, which is part of the reason I knew there was a lot of things coming down the pike.
Are any answers coming down the pike? She's asked you a question. Well, go ahead. You've still got some more time. You can have all the time in the world, because this is your protected time. Let's hear it. You said at the beginning that you were going to answer the questions that she had. Let's go.
So that's why I really like the idea of kind of breaking them up. I know the water distribution system, and discussing and understanding the need for a new plant versus fixing the one we have, where their numbers came from, and why, we need to look down to the future is...
Really, that's more than you've explained to us in any of the previous meetings, and this was not a discussion topic for this evening. But let's hear your answer to the 3 questions.
Just a meeting in itself. The stormwater, as I mentioned, is something that, because we pushed over the 35,000 bump in the road, there are new requirements from the state to have a master plan for stormwater, which is how does the water run off after rain, and where's it going to go, and how are you going to plan? And at this point in time, working with the irrigation district.
Okay, 300,000. Is it 300,000 or is it 230,000?
To try to work together is a big part of that.
I meant million.
That plan. So I personally believe that this is well worth educating the.
Well, educate me. Is it going to go on my water bill? Is it going on my water bill?
The public, and making it as transparent as possible.
Please be transparent. Are we going to get a chance to vote on this? There's your third question.
The needs down the road. So I would vote in favor of breaking it up and helping people understand that the SDCs, there's two routes that we know right now. The system development comes from people that move and are trying to set things up, and the other part is the rate study. And by having the plans in place, then we can put it out to professionals to give us an idea of what it's going to cost us. And that.
Okay.
Because they can't add.
Well, she's looking straight at Arden when she's answering Arden's three questions. You can see where she's looking at the audience. She's looking at Arden, and these are the answers. Get 30 more seconds to give us the three answers.
That's when we can start to make decisions as to where to go and how fast we can run with it. So ideally, we just want to approve it so we can get the rate study. But I think it's important. Let people know why we're asking for this kind of money and what that means on a step-by-step basis.
So we can't have a rate study. We can't have a rate study until they approve it. I mean, this reminds me of Nancy Pelosi up there saying, hey, we don't know what's in Obamacare, but let's pass the bill so we can find out what is in it. That is pure insanity. And why we're doing that here, listen, this gal had an opportunity. If she knew anything about, the intricacies of this, she had an opportunity to answer this gal's question, and she just didn't do it. No. I mean, this was.
She didn't. And they did not answer it that night. She got one of her answers the next day. Mm-hmm. Well, see, this happens with the commissioners. Well, come to my office and we'll discuss it privately. Yeah. And then I will tell you the answers while I'm yelling at you, as happened to several people we know, right. Including myself, and then later deny that I yelled at all, which also happened.
Yeah. I would not have a one-on-one meeting with either a city councilor or a county commissioner without some sort of record of the meeting, because that's anyway. It's too bad, because it doesn't matter whether it's system development charges or a rate study. They're going to study the rates and find out that you're going to pay them. That's what they're going to do. And once they approve this thing, you're going to pay them whether you like it or not. There's not going to be any changing on that or anything. I would push hard on this stormwater study thing here. Listen, we already have drains, and they take the water wherever they take the water, which I'm assuming at some point is the river. Okay. And anytime you put in a new development, you hook up to the existing drain system, and then that water goes the same place the other water goes. Now, I've heard that they want to treat that water in some way so that it's more pristine when it hits the Rogue River. Can we be, not crazy about this thing? Can we be sensible about what we're doing here? And I would like to. I know damn well that all of these numbers for all of these projects are millions and millions and millions and millions over what they need to be. That just goes without saying. It's a government project. I'm not against prudent spending for things that we absolutely need, but I'm not comfortable with these people being the arbiter of what is necessary.
Well, let's put this in context also. What was it that Darren Fowler said at that previous LIPSC meeting about the current state of affairs in Josephine County in general? He said we're close to the point at which we're all going to have to carry AK-47s. Okay, so if we're truly in a fiscal emergency and a law enforcement emergency, and we're spending in the city budget the same amount of money on water as we are on public safety, where are their priorities?
Yeah, boy, I would sure love to understand this, because I lived in a subdivision. It was about a subdivision of about 300 homes, and this was a subdivision was built in the 60s, and it ultimately failed because it didn't catch on at that time. In the later 80s, when that property was cheaper than everything else in Napa County, as you might imagine, it took off. Well, what had happened when the subdivision went bankrupt, the county took over the water system. And they had 3 employees that worked in this water system. And there was 2 water systems on the lake, and then they had a supervisor guy. Between them, they were making about, $150,000 a year. So naturally, the water rates skyrocketed. And the guy, the one guy who worked in our area, was making about $40,000 a year plus bennies. Could be found just about any time down at the marina drinking coffee in the coffee shop down there. So I'm dubious of the performance of any of these people and what it costs. When government tells me what it costs to deliver a certain product, I know damn well it can be done for half that, or less. So all of these charges, I think, are too much. They ought to be protested against. Let's see what we can do without spending the amount of money that they want to spend. I want to see, and perhaps I really need to get a little bit more involved here and read whatever documents that they already have on this, and do some digging. And I found out also another thing is that government people are lazy when it comes to setting up stuff like this. If you do some investigation here, you'll find out where the holes are in this project before it even gets started. And that's what I'm recommending that ought to be done here.
Well, now, I told you last night, and we played it tonight, that Arden McConnell really knows her stuff, and she spends almost as much time with the city council as we do with the county commissioners. So I've asked her to come on our show, and I'm hoping at some point in the future she will. But there are people that we've asked to come on the show. They fall into 3 categories. One is, yeah, sure, no problems. Another one is, are you kidding me? I hate your show, but I never watch it. And then the third category is people who are afraid of retaliation.
Yeah.
Okay, so how is the city council going to press this onto people and get them to go along with it? One is they could try to keep a low profile and not tell us what's happening. For example, not tell us there's 5 things instead of 3, or not level with, or not answer the questions that's one way of doing it, and they're already doing that. Another way is that they can do a kind of a public relations offensive, and I do mean it that way, where they're trying to influence you and let you know what a wonderful Shangri-La situation this is. And here is our final video clip of the evening.
I think that's probably the purpose of the master plan, is so it forces you to look ahead, and it forces you to do the hard work of saying, how much is this going to cost, and then justifying it. That's the tough thing. I like the idea of splitting it up into 3 different segments, because you can see the book right in front of Valerie there. That's the book we got.
That's only part of it.
And that's part of it.
Yeah.
So I think that, this counselor needs time to think about it. And I think rather than saying we're just going to dump it all into one big deal, approve it on one night and then move on at lightning quick speed to find out what the rate schedule will be. I think I'm in way much in favor of taking these one at a time. I don't know which order council would like to put those into. If that's the way we go, we'll ask for a motion in a moment. But I'm a huge fan of we'll take these one at a time so we can make a good, sound decision. And I think it'd be a lot easier to explain and inform the public as to what we are thinking on each one of these and actually describe what those are. That the wastewater collection system is the sewer system, and that stormwater is running down the streets after this last little hailstorm we had. Mm-hmm. So those are things that, we can inform the public on, and possibility, get more people on board with it, with an understanding. Mm-hmm. We know the need up here, but the public, and the Courier could help out with this, because we'll describe the need for these projects and it can be posted.
And the Courier will describe the need for this.
Mm-hmm.
The Courier will describe the need for this.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
That's what it means to be media that's under control. And that's one reason why they would hate us, because we're not under control.
Well, got the echo thing here. If this stuff is all necessary at the price tag that they have, shown, then let's put it all out on the table. For everybody to understand. I don't like this idea that we have to pass this thing so we can do a rate study. What is a rate study? A rate study is how many people are living at an address with a water meter, okay? And I'm assuming that people that have a water meter are also hooked up to the sewer. So what's the big bite, okay? What is that? There's a number to that. And then how many people do we have to split that up with? Okay, everybody's bill is going up by this much. That's what it is. For crying out loud, this is not rocket science here.
Oh, but they're going to hire somebody. Mike, they're hiring this guy, and mm-hmm. I'm not sure, but I think it's $100,000 a year to come in and figure out how to implement this rate and to manage that for the city. For all of us, of course, because you can't just say, here's the rate. You got to have an expert come in and to do this rate thing, not just a study, the implementation of the rate.
Okay, so see, do you wonder where my skepticism of government competence comes from? Now, listen, it's clearly a little bit more complicated than what I said, but not a whole hell of a lot. Because in reality, that's it. It's and you know what's going to happen is they're going to find out that they wanted to get this much from SDCs, and 5 years into it, they're going to find out, hey, nobody wants to give us that money. They're going to find out that this entire study was a waste of time, because now the people are going to have to pay a larger chunk of it, because the people who want to bring businesses in here will not, because of this chunk that's going to hit them.
And where I'm critical is where is about the media that's covering this, supposedly covering this, and that they're actually saying here, you just saw the tape, well, the Courier can help us explain the need. The Courier can help you explain the need. Why is the Courier not, well, I already know the answer to that question. Why are they not questioning the need? No. And in addition to that, you would think, well, were there any media people covering this story? You had one person speak. Any media people covering this story? Well, let me show you where 2 of the 3 TV stations are putting their, I looked up just before the show to see if there are any stories about Grants Pass at all. And this really important thing about hundreds of millions of dollars. And this is the story that's on 2 or 3 of the TV stations. There you go. There's the attention that we're getting from not just Channel 5, but 2 or 3 of the TV stations have a story about Grants Pass, and there it is.
Well, and I am completely down with that, by the way, because I'm a big In-N-Out fan.
But that,
and I hope they get here before the SDC charges go up.
I would submit to you, everybody, that I tried out their burgers a couple of times to be sure I wasn't wrong the first time. And while they're okay, it's not as important to me as spending hundreds of millions of dollars on this project, on these projects, or the divided up ones. Oh, it's really not that much. When you think about it, if you divide them up into 5 little projects, why, that's really not so bad.
Well, if the city can somehow arrange to give us a free In-N-Out card that we can use anytime we want to,
for hundreds of millions of dollars.
Yeah. Right.
Right. Well,
listen, it's about time that the people got some perks out of this deal.
It's more than I can chew.